Cajun destination.
Stock market manipulation, environmental disasters, mass unemployment, immigration, open borders, bailouts.
Grassroots Connection back on the air. I know you've heard that promo before, so, hey, I bet you'd appreciate the real thing and not that audio recording. So here we are. We're back on WOIC.com. You enter that into your search engine or browser, and that pops up our homepage. You scroll on down, you see that funny-looking black guy with a hat on. You tap that. That brings you into the chat room, brings you into the stream. The reason I'm talking so fast is I've got callers on the line, and I want to put them up here and see what they have to say. Again, our call-in number, 742-1230 gets you in, 742-1230. And then toll free at 888-671-7278. All right. And let's see. Do we still have our caller?
You sure do.
Fantastic.
It's Virginia. How are you doing?
Oh, again, fair to Midland.
Okay. I've been listening to your show, but I was here thinking, and they said all politics are local, so I wanted to gear down to something local, a project that I've been working on.
Sure.
And
Go ahead.
It involves Richland County. About 8 years ago, the state legislature told each county that they needed to write a land plan for their county. Richland County went out to the citizens and asked for volunteers, so I volunteered to be on one of their committees or task force. I chose the Ethnic and Cultural Task Force because I knew that there are people in rural parts of Richland County who is having problems with things like the subdivision of their land. It was too costly to subdivide it. So I co-chaired that task force along with a woman named Shan. Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, our task force was the only task force that went out to all 11 districts in Richland County asking for input from the people and tried to educate them and explain to him what the land planning was all about. Because there were so many half-lies, half-truths, and just misconceptions about what was going on. So we thought it would be best to inform the people, listen to them, and then let them give their input as to what they thought should be included in this land plan.
Right.
To make a long story short, we gathered this information, took it back to the planning department at Richland County. The number one priority on our list was an ordinance that would be written especially for families who own land and was trying to pass that land on to their children.
Yes, ma'am.
And so they assured us that there would be two ordinances written, one for builders and developers who wanted to subdivide land to build subdivisions as a business to make a profit. And it was a second set of ordinances that was supposed to be written for people who, say a family, a man and a wife had 50 acres of land, and they wanted to divide that land and give each child 10 acres. Then we wanted a separate plan written for people in situations like that, or for the subdivision of land to be passed on ancestrally. We were assured that this was going to happen. And in fact, after they started writing the plans, I went down, picked up a copy of the whole plan. It took me 2 weeks to read through it, and that was the one thing that I looked for.
Right.
So in the draft form, they had two sets of ordinances, one for developers and one for families. So I was pleased. Well, when Richland County passed it, the council passed it, I just assumed that two sets of ordinance for the division of land was in there. Well, to my dismay, I found out about several months ago that it was not in there. That ordinance for the division of land for families or ancestral land was not in there. So one family came to me and said, I thought you told us that there were supposed to be two sets of ordinances. And I said, well, there was. And in fact, I saw the draft of it. So it's in there. They went back and they said, no, it's not in there.
What?
Well, to make a long story short, I told her to go see my council person, this family. They went to see my council person. We got together, and my council person drew up the set of ordinances again that would allow and make it in reasonable conditions that families owning inherited land in Richland County could subdivide that land without paying a cow and a calf.
Right,
Because,
like the developer.
That's right. Now,
I don't have a problem with them paying it, but you know, when you're bequeathing land to your family members, there shouldn't be some sort of outrageous tax on that. So I understand.
Well, see, what happens is if a developer subdivides land to build a subdivision, he has to put in paved roads, they have to put in sidewalks, and they have to put in stormwater drainage. But these people are making profits on this money. This is a business.
That's right.
But a family shouldn't have to do that. If I choose to live on a dirt road, then I choose to live on a dirt road. That's all I can afford. So that's where I'm going to live.
I mean, I live on a dirt road.
That's right. So anyway, these were the kind of things that we were looking at when we asked for that second set of ordinances to be written up for families.
Yes, ma'am.
But to make a long story short, what happened is my council person, Norman Jackson, went back to the planning department, had the planning department rewrite this set of ordinances again. And we have already gotten it through one reading. Believe it or not, there are people on council who doesn't want us to get this thing through 3 readings, okay?
Huh.
And go ahead.
What do you think their motivation would be? In other words, do you think it's tax revenue, or do you think that these requirements that would be put on these families would make
it impossible?
Yeah, and then they may lose some of that land.
That's how land has been lost by got people who what I call land rich but money poor.
That's right. Okay.
So on the second Tuesday of November is going to be the second reading of that ordinance. And the reason I'm calling is I want your listeners, anybody who owns inherited property or I call it ancestral land, and you're going to be dividing that land at some point, we need to get this amendment passed so that it will make it financially feasible for you to subdivide that land.
Right.
And I don't own any ancestral County. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do.
I agree with you, and I laud you and applaud you for standing up and putting your body where your mouth is. I mean, it's easy to talk about it, but you actually went in, sat down with these people, joined the board, and took action. That's what it's all that's required.
That's what a democracy is about. We the people.
That's right.
We the people. So anybody out there listening who has family members in Richland County, no friends in Richland County who has property and they're going to be faced with subdividing that property, they need to get in contact with their Richland County Council representative. Tell that person you want that amendment. You want them to vote yes on that amendment that Norman Jackson has put forward on the subdivision of land.
Well, let me ask you a question. You said this thing was going to go down on November 2nd, right?
That's the second reading is going to come around on the second Tuesday of November.
Well, let me think. If I'm still on the air in November, which, is kind of iffy.
Iffy, I understand.
All right, because I get a little heated, and,
I understand.
And, but anyway, if I'm still here, how about it if you come in along with Mr. Jackson, you said?
I most certainly would.
And we'll go over it.
I most certainly would. My grandmother told me something a long time ago. She always taught us to be right and do right.
That's right.
But she says you're going to find out that being right and doing right is going to be the hardest thing in the world.
Boy.
I used to wonder what she was talking about. Now I know.
Well, she was a very wise lady.
That's right. Thank you, Andre.
Thank you. And, hey, don't let me forget about this. Okay?
Don't worry. I won't.
All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you much. And always appreciate callers, but especially ones that are willing to actually get out there and do something other than talk about it. That's what is required right now. We have politicians, again, run by corporations, whether you like them or not. They're not representing us. That's the point. That's the whole issue. I was speaking earlier, and the reporter's name that I was, neglecting to remember was Rick Sanchez. I got a phone call. Somebody said, yeah, that was Rick Sanchez. I remember that. If you say that the people who run our country are who they are, you get taken out. I'm not trying to get taken out, but I do want to tell the truth, okay? And I feel like maybe somebody should come to Rick Sanchez's aid, or maybe Helen Thomas's aid. I mean, if you're President Obama or President Bush or President Reagan or president of, you name it, you are open for attack by your political opponents. You're in a public office. But if you really get down to who's running this place, they will cut your you-know-what off. But anyway, Miss Virginia, I want you to come in, and I want to sit down, and I want to get a better understanding of what you're talking about. Because I own land. Maybe not in Richland County, certainly in Lexington County. I have family all over the place. And I've noticed, I used to live in Hilton Head. I'm going to go on a little rant. You guys can call in and shut me up anytime you want to. I will give you the mic. So don't be afraid. Just call in. 742-1230 gets you in. 742-1230. Or toll free at 888-671-7278. But anyway, I lived in Hilton Head for about 6 years, and I really enjoyed the Gullah people. And I really got down in there with them, okay? And got to understand their culture, got to understand their heritage, and became very much aware of how tax laws and, zoning laws facilitated them losing their property to mega corporations who would build these huge resorts right next to a small fisherman. And the small fisherman's property values would shoot through the roof. I mean, they would go from, let's be realistic, $120,000 just for the property. Now there's a major resort right next door. That property value just shot up through the roof. And they were literally losing their lands as fast as each generation would come. They would lose more and more because the younger people would leave Hilton Head, obviously, and go in search of their fortune. And then when their parents became ill, well, the children had already started a family somewhere else, so they weren't really intending on ever coming back, but their legacy was there, that their parents were preparing for them. And then they would let it slip. They would let it go. They couldn't afford the taxes, man, on this property because they've got a multi-billion-dollar resort right next door. So this stuff is very important. It's very important for anybody who owns property to understand how this stuff works. So, Miss Virginia, you're more than welcome. Bring your friend, Mr. Jackson, and the mic is yours, okay? So, anyway, 742-1230 gets you in, but we're almost out of here, I'm not going to stress over the phone. I tell you what, I wanted to go over a little bit more of this U.S. apologizes for fatal strike in Pakistan. And the reason is, my heart is bleeding for these Pakistanis right now. I mean, really, think about this for just a minute. I want you to become aware. Listen to me. They have had the biggest flood in 50 years. There are Pakistani refugees, and by that I mean homeless people walking around with everything they own on their backs. Families, hundreds of thousands, maybe even 1 million refugees currently. And as they are suffering through this worst environmental catastrophe in 50 years in their land, we're dropping bombs on them in the name of fighting terrorism. Who is the terrorist? I want to know. Somebody come in here and explain it to me. Who is the terrorist? Because, if you're suffering from